朋友们好，欢迎来到真观点，我是珍飞。今天这期节目你绝对不想错过，因为我为你们准备了一场货真价实的政治大餐，不加料不掺水，都是最新鲜最好看的英文原声采访合集。还记得去年大选之前呢，我们曾经分享过一些英文原声采访配上了中文翻译的很多视频。那朋友们呢都很喜欢这种形式，能够直观的感受甚至是参与到美国重要的历史选举当中。后来因为平台的限制，我们这一类内容做的比较少了，但我知道很多朋友一直在期待。今天就是这样一期原汁原味的英文采访合集。我精心挑选了几段重磅的英文采访，透露了目前很多让人看得应接不暇的事件的背后的故事。先来点剧透吧，帮你们提前开胃。大家记不记得竞选期间我们翻译过很多 JD Vance 的采访，发现他在应对媒体，特别是不太看好川普 Vance 组合的左媒时，他都能够非常机敏、智慧和妥善的应对。当时很多朋友就猜测 Vance 是川普挑选的接班人呐，否则他怎么会选这样一位初出茅庐、名声不噪，而且还是最年轻的这样一位助手来作为他的搭档呢？那么在最近的一个采访当中， Both Vance and Trump 都被问到了这个问题。问 Vance 的是你有没有计划2028年竞选总统，问川普的是你是否把 Vance 当作你的接班人。他们各自对这个问题是如何回答的，还有最近持续霸屏的马斯克领导的 Doge 内部团队是怎么运作的，川普怎么看 Doge 团队，怎么看马斯克，川普和马斯克之间的关系如何，他有多信任马斯克呢？要知道他可是说过要限制马斯克权力的话的。那川普对此的回答呢，可以说是相当的坦率，但也透露了这两人之间不为人知的细节。川普还谈到了习近平，既语出惊人又耐人寻味。他说全世界没有人比我更了解习近平。这句话的背后是他的自信、讽刺，还是另有深意？听听他的解释，可能让你大开眼界。重新入主到白宫，川普的感受和8年之前又有何不同？这第47届政府和他曾经领导的第45届政府有什么样政策纲领的不同呢？最后 Vance 作为副总统第一次登上了国际舞台。最近他在巴黎举行的首席执行官和国家元首峰会上警告欧洲，不要对美国的科技公司实施严格的监管，不要用监管扼杀人工智能，还暗戳戳地讽刺了那些专制集权国家对美国人工智能技术的剽窃。这些内容信息量可很大，所以呢一定要看到节目的最后。对了，如果你是第一次看见我们的节目，我们和很多时政博主的新闻串烧呢不太一样，我们每期只讲一个话题，但是核心是和你一起来探究新闻背后的故事。如果你也想从迅速变化的局势当中来看清这背后的深意，那就订阅真观点，我们组个队吧，一起来探究新闻背后的故事。
You know, it seems the first days of this administration are like a no-huddle offense. You know, plays going down the field, one after another. There's a long list of things you've already got done in 3 weeks. Big border policy changes, ICE crackdowns on criminals, taking biological men out of women and girls' sports, big energy policy changes. So what's different with you and your administration? The difference between the 45th president and the 47th president?
Well, with the 45th, I had tremendous opposition. I won. I did a great job. I never ran before, and I won the presidency. But I didn't know people, and I didn't have the kind of support that I needed. I put people in office, some really great ones, but I had some that I wouldn't have put. I would have, known better if it were a couple of years later, or if I had a little more experience in D.C. I was a New York person, not a D.C. person. And I had a lot of opposition. I just noticed, I looked on the stage for the recent inauguration, and I'm looking, it's like a who's who of Washington. Well, if you look on the stage for the first one, it was just the opposite. There weren't a lot of people that were Washington people. And I had some great people, but I had some people that I wouldn't have put there. And I had opposition that I don't have now, this great unity. Even many of the enemies are already, whether they gave up and they just said, look, we're going with this guy. But I have great support in the business community, in the political community. You take a look at the Senate right now, it's been phenomenal. You take a look at the House. We have our leadership in both is fantastic. We really have a tremendous momentum, and it's great for the country. And all over the world, they're talking about it. There's like a light shining all over the world. So many people have said that, not just here, all over the world.
So some of your plays have raised some questions and had some pushbacks. 19 states' attorneys general filed a lawsuit, and early Saturday, a judge agreed with them to restrict Elon Musk and his team, government efficiency team and Doge, from accessing Treasury Department payment and data systems. They said there was a risk of irreparable harm. What do you make of that? And does that slow you down on what you want to do?
No, I disagree with it 100%. I think it's crazy. And we have to solve the efficiency problem. We have to solve the fraud, waste, abuse, all the things that have gone in the government. You take a look at the USAID, the kind of fraud in there,
and you've found significant things.
Well, we're talking about hundreds of millions of dollars of money that's going to places where it shouldn't be going, where if I read a list, you'd say this is ridiculous, and you've read the same lists, and there are many that you haven't even seen. It's crazy. We're talking about hundreds of millions, even billions of dollars. It's just a fraud. It's a big scam. Now, there's some good money, and we can do that through any one of a number. I think I'd rather give it to Marco Rubio over at the State Department. Let him take care of the few good ones. But, I mean, usually when you have a list like that, you'll have a couple of, like, bad ones and all good ones. Here we have a couple of good ones and all bad ones. Just hundreds of horrible places that they're giving this money. So I don't know if it's kickbacks or what's going on. But the people, look, I ran on this, and the people want me to find it. And I've had a great help with Elon Musk, who's been terrific. He comes in with 100 very smart people. You know, it started off with 12, then it went to 15, then it went to 25, then it went to 50, and everybody wants to join. And I guess you have to have an IQ of about 175 at least to do it. They're a smart group of people. They don't dress as well as you or maybe me, but they are smart. And they go in there and they talk to people, and the people get all tongue-tied because they have no idea. You know, nobody thought this would be caught. And
so you'll fight this in court, but how does it work with Elon day to day? Does he come in and say, this is what I'm working on? Does he say, here's what we're doing?
First of all, he's a great guy. He was never really a supporter or not a supporter. He was a, you know, sort of semi-neutral kind of a guy, not a political person, very smart, a brilliant person, and which I like. I'm a big believer in IQ points. I mean, it's a good thing. And I've gotten to know him a little bit over the last couple of years. During the campaign, he liked what I said. He went to Pennsylvania. He actually campaigned right after the rocket ship went up, where he caught it coming down, which nobody saw before. He then took off. He went to Pennsylvania. He actually campaigned for me and did a very good job. I won Pennsylvania by a lot. I won everything by a lot. But Elon, I'd say, go in here, because USAID, I heard very bad things about for years. I mean, you did too. I mean, I'm sure you did too. It's a scam. It's a fraud, a lot of it, most of it. But it's a fraud. Look at the jobs that they produce for people. I'm not even going to mention their name. It's too big a show to mention their name. It's almost unfair. But the whole thing is a giant fraud. And I think judges will have to do the right thing, really. Otherwise, you're going to have a whole big problem with the country. Now,
bottom line, you say you trust him.
Trust Elon? Oh, he's not gaining anything. In fact, I wonder how he can devote the time to it. He's so into it. But I told him to do that. Then I'm going to tell him very soon, like maybe in 24 hours, to go check the Department of Education. He's going to find the same thing. Then I'm going to go to the military. Let's check the military. We're going to find billions, hundreds of billions of dollars of fraud and abuse. And, you know, the people elected me on that. And we have a group of people that you just can't get. I mean, these are really brilliant. It's a group, I call it the group of 100. We literally started off with 14 or 15 young geniuses. Now we have 100 young geniuses. And what's happened, I'll probably get a lot from the show, people are calling up from all over the country wanting to do and wanting to help Elon. You know, they respect him and they respect me. They love what's happening with our country. But I campaigned on this, Brett.
You say you trust Elon. I mean, you can't imagine a scenario where you would have to rail him in or set up guardrails for him.
Well, I think I have guardrails, yeah. Elon is somebody that I have a lot of respect for, but you have to have guardrails. He reports to me, and he's doing a fantastic job. I wanted somebody who's extremely intelligent. He's that. He's also a good cost cutter. You can't send an average person into that quagmire. It's a very dangerous quagmire. I watched some of these horrible people like Maxine Waters, real sleaze. And I watched her screaming at the security guard or whoever he was. Actually, he was pretty cool.
At the Department of Education.
He was pretty cool, standing in front of the Department of Education. She's only looking for trouble. She's not looking to help people learn. Look, tell Maxine and all of her friends that we're last in education. Out of 40 states, we're last. We're number 40. But we're number 1 in cost per pupil. That's all you have to know. We have to make a change. I want to send education back to the states. You know, if you send education to Iowa and to Indiana and to a lot of these states that are so good, to Idaho, they have no debt, they have no crime, they have no this, they have no that. It's like perfect because the best states are, if you look at the list of the top, the best countries for education, it's Norway and Sweden and Denmark and Finland. And by the way, China's right up there in the top 5, which is pretty amazing for those that say it's too big for that. It's rated in the top 5. We're number 40. And we can have, if you take those states and many others, I think 35 states, they would be as good as Denmark and Norway. They would be as good as the number 1, number 2, number 3, number 4. They'd be in there. But on a countrywide basis, I think we have 35 states would be in that category. Then you'd have 5 or 6 that would be mediocre. And then you'd have the same ones that are bad on crime and bad on everything probably would be bad on education. But they'd almost be forced to get better. But you could take New York as an example, and you don't have to do 1. You do 5 or 6. You do Suffolk County, you do Nassau County, you do Westchester County, and then you do upstate New York, and you do Manhattan. You know, you have 5 or 6 or 7. And they'd be small enough where they could really give some personalized education. Also, the spotlight would be on them. It wouldn't be a country. It would be just on Manhattan, or it would be on Nassau County or Westchester County. And if we did that, if we sent them back, our educational system would be double, and it would cost probably half. You know what, Brett? It would cost much. It would cost so little.
So that's the next step.
Have you seen how many buildings Department of Education occupies in Manhattan? And I keep saying, what do they do? It should be done locally. Also, we should have school choice.
We talked about China, and that tariff is in place. You've said tariff is a beautiful word.
Well, that's just a small portion of it. I just did the China having to do with what's happening with fentanyl. That was a penalty to China because they're sending massive numbers. I mean, numbers like we've never seen before.
So more to come.
It really increased under Biden. What's happened under Biden is a disgrace. Not only the prisoners, mental patients, everybody from all over the world, not South America, all over the world, how he allowed this to happen. And when you see the great job that Tom Homan's doing and Kristi Noem and everybody else that they're doing with taking thousands of people a day out of here, and these are hardened criminals. These are murderers in many cases. Biden allowed this to happen to our country. We shouldn't have to be doing it.
What the administration do about pushing back on communist China? I mean, the president made a remark the other day that, look, it's not just TikTok. You've got surveillance in your own phone if it's made in China. You've got surveillance everywhere. I mean, we've got, spy balloons from China, surveillance, propaganda, undermining the United States at every turn. What are you going to do about it?
Well, first, we're going to impose some tariffs. And I think the president's been very clear about that. The tariffs are in some ways a penalty for the Chinese taking advantage of America's economy, for sending drugs into our country. They have to actually face some consequences for doing what they've done now for 20, 30, 40 years to our country, Maria. And part of what the tariffs do is they allow the president to have a negotiation with the Communist Chinese Party about actually having a little bit more of a balanced relationship. Whereas we used to have one where the Chinese stole our jobs, took advantage of us, stole our intellectual property, and sent a lot of crap into our country like illegal drugs. We now actually want to have a much more balanced relationship with the Chinese, but that's going to require, I think, the Chinese to face some consequences. So there are ways to fight back. We're starting to do that now, and we're going to keep on doing it over the next.
President Xi.
I think that China is so economic, it's so trade-based, and look, Biden allowed China to go crazy, and we have a deficit with China of over $1 trillion a year. Can you believe it? But with all of that said, China needs us because they take out so much money out of the United States. We're not going to let them take out the kind of money they're taking out now, but we're going to let them take out money, and they're going to do very well. And we want them. I happen to like him a lot, President Xi. Yes. I love talking to him.
Since the inauguration.
Yeah, and I've talked to him. And I talk to his people, too. His people come in all the time. We have a very good personal relationship. You know, I don't want to sound foolish because...
Well, you had him here, Mar-a-Lago.
I had him here. I know him very well. I know him probably better than just about anybody in various parts of the world.
You're one of the youngest vice presidents that we've ever seen in the history of our country. Are you expecting to run for president in 3.5 years?
Oh, Maria, you're the first person who's asked me that. And I'd say that we've not thought a lot about politics in the last 6 months. We've thought about getting the American people's business done. We'll see what happens come 2028. But the way that I think about this is the best thing for my future is actually the best thing for the American people, which is that we do a really good job over the next 3.5 years. So we'll cross the political bridge when we come to it. I'm not thinking about running for president. I'm thinking about doing a good job for the American people. And I think the best way to do that is to make sure that President Trump is a success.
And how important is it to bring young people into the political conversation?
So huge, so important. And I think that's certainly one of the things, one of the responsibilities that I take seriously. I've got a 7-year-old, an almost 5-year-old, and a 3-year-old kid at home. I do think I view America's political problems from the perspective of a young father, because that's exactly what I am. So I definitely try to bring that perspective into the Oval Office and meetings on Capitol Hill. That's an important role for me to play, and I'll keep on playing it.
And I love that. You're a family man. And one of the first executive orders that President Trump signed in was school choice.
Yes.
And so we talk about education. Do you have a vision there in terms of how things should look for your children as they grow up? You're talking about killing or shutting down the education department to save costs. So what does the education look like?
Well, I think we could save costs and actually give American children a better education. We spend way more per pupil on on education than almost any country in the world, and we've gotten worse and worse outcomes. I think the president's exactly right that if you give parents more choice and more capacity to choose what's in the best interest of their kids, then we're going to make education better for all American children. It's really weird to me, actually, that so many politicians, they send their kids to private schools, but then they want to deny that opportunity to the families of poor children or middle-class children. My attitude is anything that's good enough for my kids, I want to give all Americans those opportunities. And that's exactly what the president's school choice policy aims to do.
Now, do you view Vice President J.D. Vance as your successor, the Republican nominee in 2028?
No, but he's very capable. I mean, I don't think that I think you have a lot of very capable people. So far, I think he's doing a fantastic job. It's too early. We're just starting. I will say...
But by the time you get to the midterms, he's going to be looking for an endorsement.
Yeah, a lot of people have said that this has been the greatest opening, almost 3 weeks, in the history of the presidency.
It's definitely been the fastest and the most stuff
Well,
happening.
We've done so much so fast, and we really had to, because they have really, what they've done to our country is so sad. It's so sad. We're going to be bigger, better, and stronger than ever before.
The United States of America is the leader in AI, and our administration plans to keep it that way. The U.S. possesses all components across the full AI stack, including advanced semiconductor design, frontier algorithms, and, of course, transformational applications. Now, the computing power this stack requires is integral to advancing AI technology. And to safeguard America's advantage, the Trump administration will ensure that the most powerful AI systems are built in the U.S. with American-designed and manufactured chips. Now, just because we're the leader doesn't mean we want to or need to go it alone, of course. And let me be emphatic about this point. America wants to partner with all of you. And we want to embark on the AI revolution before us with a spirit of openness and collaboration. But to create that kind of trust, we need international regulatory regimes that fosters the creation of AI technology rather than strangles it. And we need our European friends in particular to look to this new frontier with optimism rather than trepidation. Now, the development of cutting-edge AI in the U.S. is no accident. By preserving an open regulatory environment, we've encouraged American innovators to experiment and to make unparalleled R&D investments. Of the $700 billion, give or take, that's estimated to be spent on AI in 2028, over half of it will likely be invested in the United States of America. Now, this administration will not be the one to snuff out the startups and the grad students producing some of the most groundbreaking applications of artificial intelligence. Instead, our laws will keep big tech little tech, and all other developers on a level playing field. Now, with the President's recent executive order on AI, we're developing an AI action plan that avoids an overly precautionary regulatory regime while ensuring that all Americans benefit from the technology and its transformative potential. Now, we invite your countries to work with us and to follow that model if it makes sense for your nations. However, the Trump administration is troubled by reports that some foreign governments are considering tightening the screws on U.S. tech companies with international footprints. Now, America cannot and will not accept that, and we think it's a terrible mistake, not just for the United States of America, but for your own countries. The U.S. innovators of all sizes already know what it's like to deal with onerous international rules. Many of our most productive tech companies are forced to deal with the EU's Digital Services Act and the massive regulations it created about taking down content and policing so-called misinformation. And of course, we want to ensure the internet is a safe place, but it is one thing to prevent a predator from preying on a child on the internet, and it is something quite different to prevent a grown man or woman from accessing an opinion that the government thinks is misinformation. Meanwhile, for smaller firms, navigating the GDPR means paying endless legal compliance costs or otherwise risking massive fines. Now, for some, the easiest way to avoid the dilemma has been to simply block EU users in the first place. Is this really the future that we want? Ladies and gentlemen, I think the answer for all of us should be no. Now, there's no issue where we worry about more than regulation when it comes to energy. And again, I appreciated the comments of so many at the conference because they recognize that we stand now at the frontier of an AI industry that is hungry for reliable power and high-quality semiconductors. Yet too many of our friends are deindustrializing on the one hand and chasing reliable power out of their nations and off their grids with the other. The AI future is not going to be won by hand-wringing about safety. It will be won by building, from reliable power plants to the manufacturing facilities that can produce the chips of the future. Now, we've also watched as hostile foreign adversaries have weaponized AI software to rewrite history, surveil users, and censor speech. This is hardly new, of course. As they do with other tech, some authoritarian regimes have stolen and used AI to strengthen their military, intelligence, and surveillance capabilities, capture foreign data, and create propaganda to undermine other nations' national security. I want to be clear. This administration will block such efforts, full stop. We will safeguard American AI and chip technologies from theft and misuse, work with our allies and partners to strengthen and extend these protections, and close pathways to adversaries attaining AI capabilities that threaten all of our people. And I would also remind our international friends here today that partnering with such regimes, it never pays off in the long term. From CCTV to 5G equipment, we're all familiar with cheap tech in the marketplace that's been heavily subsidized and exported by authoritarian regimes. But as I know, and I think some of us in this room have learned from experience, partnering with them means chaining your nation to an authoritarian master that seeks to infiltrate, dig in, and seize your information infrastructure. Should a deal seem too good to be true, just remember the old adage that we learned in Silicon Valley: if you aren't paying for the product, you are the product.
噔噔噔，这就是今天为各位奉上的政治大餐，各位还满意吗？朋友们喜欢我时不时的穿插这一类英文原声采访的视频吗？如果喜欢的话呢，请一定要点赞告诉我。如果这期节目的点赞数量能够达到我们视频流量的1半呢，我就知道你们肯定是非常喜欢了。如果你看这个点赞目前的情况不如流量的1半，但是你实在又很喜欢这一类内容，那就留言告诉我吧。好啦，感谢朋友们的观看啦，我会追踪这一期节目的数据哦。很高兴每周3和周6都能够在真观点和朋友们相聚，那祝大家有一个愉快的周末，我们下周3又不见不散喽。